And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Harvey versus Hyatt. Step forward, please.
Student Tammy Harvey is suing her ex-boyfriend, mechanic Glenn Hyatt, for the cost of breast reconstruction surgery. Glenn says Tammy's surgery is not his responsibility.
Miss Harvey, the defendant is a former boyfriend of yours, and it is your claim that he promised to pay for some repair work on breast implants that you had while you were together. You've since broken up, and he refuses to pay for this reconstructive kind of surgery, which you have not yet had. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Were you living together?
At one point.
When?
From March till December of the past year.
And you had breast augmentation surgery previously, is that right? When? How old were you?
27.
Okay. So when you were 27, you had breast augmentation surgery for the first time. Did you ever have any subsequent surgery?
Yes, I had problems.
What kind of problems did you have?
With the first set, I had hardening, which they took them out and put saline and silicone in, where they would enhance them gradually so it wouldn't build up the scar tissue.
And how old were you when that happened?
All of this happened within 5 years. I had like 5 surgeries.
5?
Mm-hmm.
When you were 27, you had the first surgery. When did you have the next one?
Like the year after that.
Why?
After the hardening, they wanted to take out the bulbs that they used to put the saline in. And when he took the bulbs out, he wanted to just put in a new fresh set with the upgraded implants.
So that's when you were 28?
Right.
When did you have the next surgery?
It was a couple of weeks after that I developed a staph infection, and they removed the right breast implant, and then I went a year without an implant.
Without?
Right.
Miss Harvey,
Yeah.
you went and had the implants put in again?
I had to, because the skin had stretched so much. The doctor said it wouldn't look normal if he hadn't put another implant in there to replace the...
So then you were 29?
Correct.
So now I have 4 surgeries. When was the 5th?
The year after that, after the staph infection, he put new saline implants in, and then they were fine for the next 8 years.
What happened 8 years later? So at that point, you're about 38.
Right. I started dating the defendant, and I was having some problems. They were hurting. We massaged them together, Glenn and I, and in an intimate moment, the right one, it ruptured. And it took some time before the saline came down. But over time, you know, it was obvious, and it made a real impression on my self-esteem and everything. And the defendant and I were engaged to be married, and we were getting his finances in order so we could be married. So I was taking care of the majority of the bills and helping him. And when it came time for me to have my surgery, because last summer we couldn't enjoy going to the pool and everything like that, that's when he took me to the doctor. I had 2 consultations, and the surgeries were between $6,400 and $6,700. At that time, the defendant did a quick app financing the surgery, but it was denied. And now, you know, I wanted to get this taken care of because it is noticeable, and I have pain because scar tissue builds up around the implant where it is because it's flat now, it's not smooth, and I have a lot of pain, and psychologically it's just hurting me, and he's backed away from his commitment to me.
Well, I didn't hear about a commitment.
We've talked over the 2 years about taking care of it.
As a couple?
As a couple.
When you were sharing expenses?
Correct.
You want to say anything, Mr. Hyde?
I just deny any responsibility for ever saying that I would pay for her surgery, and I had nothing to do with it, with her implant rupturing.
I have a quick app that he said he would pay for it, and I have the doctor's with a picture.
Okay, go ahead.
I filled out that application to help her get the money, you know, for financing her surgery. That's the only reason that I did it. It wasn't to say that I would pay for it.
I think that there is some truth somewhere in the middle of your 2 statements, and that is that it was contemplated that as a couple, since you were going to be pooling your money at some point if you got married, this would be a joint debt because you were filling out the credit application if you couldn't get credit, and you were going to be a couple and move on, and this was just going to be one of the things that you had to pay off. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay, so that's somewhere in the middle of he promised to pay for it and I didn't promise to pay for it. It was going to be a family debt. But you're no longer a family, Miss Harvey. That's your problem. There has to be a reason.
I put most of our debts for the past 2 years on my credit cards to help him get out of debt in the promise that we would be married. And I did have a promise he would pay for it. He's not telling the truth. He said he would pay for the surgery.
Oh, I think that it was a family obligation. That when you were together, you put the majority of your money to use paying off debt. That was a nice thing. However, that does not create a promise that he would take care of this for you. I have just a couple of questions, Mr. Haidt. How much do you think she paid off in debt for you over the short time that you were together?
I don't recall her ever paying anything off for me. We took some trips and went to eat and things like that on her credit card. But as far as her taking money and paying any of my financial responsibilities, monthly debts and bills, that never happened.
So what you're saying is that she relieved you of certain stress by paying for your entertainment and your vacations
expenses.
And some living expenses.
He lived free.
Did you pay rent when you were living together?
I did not pay rent. I paid the utilities.
Not always. I paid 7 out of 5 times for the utilities.
I mean, you paid 5 times out of 7 months.
No, he was
Can't
more.
pay 7 out of 5. That math doesn't work. Miss Harvey,
Yes.
the romance is over. It's sad that it's over. And I'm not going to give you any medical advice because I'm not a doctor, but it seems to me a substantial part of your late 20s, early 30s, and now beyond are involved in recuperating from surgery. Maybe you should just say, this was not meant to be.
The doctor said that I would have to have the surgery, and the implants needed to come out because of chance of infection, and that
Do you have medical insurance?
No, I don't. They won't cover it because it's cosmetic.
Well, this isn't cosmetic if the doctor says it has to come out. For medical reasons, the chance of infection, then that's not a cosmetic reason.
They both
Ms.
denied my insurance.
Well, then I would appeal it, because if what you're saying to me is that you have medical proof that this is dangerous to your health, then your insurance should pay for it. They may not pay for the reconstructive part, but they certainly should pay for removing them. In any event, I find that no promise existed, no contract existed between the plaintiff and the defendant for him to assume the full responsibility of your surgery. And unfortunately, Ms. Harvey, I think you're going to have to assume the responsibility of this surgery yourself. Case is dismissed, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I don't think Glenn was truthful, and if he was, that I would have had the judgment.
I think that justice was served.
He did make promises, and that was one of the promises for him to help me, and now he doesn't want to.
I never made any of the promises or signed any contract stating that I would pay for the surgery.
It's been awful. I mean, my life's been upside down. I can't wear certain shirts. I have to cover myself up. I have pain.
And I wasn't responsible for the rupture of the implant.
I would just like to get on with my life.
If you want to continue a relationship with someone, then you shouldn't sue them.
It's not worth it.
Reservations agent Rosemary Harris is suing her son's former common law wife, 25-year-old customer service rep Rebecca Cardisco, for a series of unpaid loans. Rebecca says the money was meant for her children's Christmas gifts.
Order. All rise.
Yeah, this is case number 193 on the calendar in the matter of Harris versus Cardisco.
Thank you, Bird.
Quite welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat.
Miss Harris, is this your son?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this the son that has 2 children with this lady?
Yes, ma'am.
It is your claim that the defendant owes you some money for a series of loans. She and your son, I assume, lived together or were together for a period of time, because according to what I've read, they have 2 children together.
Yes, ma'am.
How old are your grandchildren?
3 and 1. And John also has 2 stepsons, which were Rebecca's children.
Well, they were never married.
No, but he has custody of them.
He has custody of her 2 children that are not his biological children.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have custody of all 4 children. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
What is wrong with you? Shh, quiet.
We went through we're going through custody right now.
No. I could understand when you have a custody dispute involving parents, 2 biological parents. Judge has to weigh what's in a child's best interest. But when a judge, unless the judge is educated on Jupiter, gives non-biological children to not even a step-parent, because the 2 of you were never married, to somebody else, there has to be something wrong with you. Do you have a drug problem, an alcohol problem?
I did, Your Honor. I did have a drug problem, and he doesn't have full custody of the children. It's going through social services.
Well, but who do they live with 5 days a week?
Right now, him.
Fine. So, and they go to school from his house?
Yes.
So right now he has custody?
Yes, Your Honor.
And are you in a drug program?
Yes, I am.
Did you go into a residential program?
When I get back in town, I am.
So you are not now in a residential drug
No,
program?
but I'm in outpatient program right now.
How long were you using drugs?
For 3 years. After I had my daughter, I got in a car wreck and had a lot of back problems.
Oh, everybody has back problems. But not everybody becomes addicted to drugs. Okay. Tell me about the loans.
Okay, basically met Becky in March of '98 when she was living with her another boyfriend in the same complex we did. They broke up and she needed a place to stay, and she finagled her way into my house and lived with us for a couple of months, and then her and John started a relationship. Then the first grandchild was born in 9 of '99, and from that point on, it started being just a big con. Every couple months, every couple weeks, she needed this or needed that or needed help with this. Then they broke up for a while, and she had her own apartment and would hold the baby almost hostage. If you want to see your granddaughter, you'll give me this. She had a car wreck in 11 of '99, and that's when she got her back hurt and started taking Vicodin and Zoma and got addicted to them. And then she got pregnant again with my second granddaughter and had her
Also no testament to his good judgment.
Yes.
Okay.
And she was born in March of 2001.
Now, when she lived with you, she also lived with you with her other 2 children.
Yes, ma'am. I supported her and her 2 children then. And then after the second baby was born, she really got deep into the drugs. She, at one point, had 8 drug felonies on her. 2 of them were where she used my name to get the drugs. And she was actually able to con her way out of those charges. She got something called drug court, where she gets to go in and talk to somebody once a week. And
At what point did they remove the children?
in May of this year.
Were either of the girls born with any sort of drugs in their system?
No, ma'am.
Were either of them tested?
No, ma'am. So there's no way to know for sure.
Where does your son live now, Miss Harris?
My son lives in Fort Collins with the children, and I travel there every day to help him with the children.
Stand there. Who takes care of the children?
Oh, I do. My mother helps.
You work?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
Construction.
How do you support yourself?
Right now, I don't have a place to live. That's why when I go back, I'm going into treatment.
How do you expect her to give you any money?
In July of this year, Becky claimed she got a $50,000 insurance settlement.
Did
She
you?
went out and bought a new car.
No, I
Did
didn't.
you?
No, I didn't. My grandmother.
Did you get any money?
My grandmother gave me a couple thousand to get me a car so I could get a job.
And what'd you do with the car?
It broke down.
Did you ever tell Miss Harris that you got a settlement for something?
I did tell her I had gotten some money and that I would give her some. I did tell her that. But I didn't have any. And as far as...
You didn't have any what?
I didn't have any money.
So what you told her was a lie?
Yes, Your Honor.
How much money do you owe her?
I do owe her money. She did give me money for Christmas. I'm not going to say I don't owe her anything, because I do.
So I'm asking, how much do you owe her?
I don't know for sure. I mean,
How much does she owe you for Christmas?
For Christmas alone, $800. But prior to that, I gave her $500 for rent in November, $500 again rent for January and and I even had to take loans out from where I worked for me to survive because I was
Did you
giving her
expect
money.
to get that money back?
Yes,
Ms.
I
Harris,
did.
my question is, seriously, did you expect to get that money back from her? And I mean, you can get a judgment, but I'm going to ask you honestly.
Yes, ma'am.
Where is she going to get the
would,
money from?
She would actually sit there on the phone in front of me and be talking to the insurance guy. Actually sit there talking to him, but she actually wasn't talking to him. And she was having a conversation with nobody. Yes, I'll come down and get that check. At one point, I mean, several times she was supposed to pick up a check. She had John and I believing she got a $50,000 check. She was throwing money around. She went and got a $150 perm. She gave me a $100 bill one time to thank me for watching her kids because she'd been out of the house for almost 3 months. I actually thought she was getting a settlement. Then I find this letter in the house. She settled for next to nothing in November of 2000.
Let me see.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You didn't tell them that you were settling it. You just wanted the money right away.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah,
say
I know.
so.
But if you're doing drugs, you need some money for drugs. Nonsense! Nonsense!
And later today,
If she's the co-signer on a note for your car, then you're supposed to pay for the car.
Right, which I pay her for.
Let's go slowly, Mr. Gaffney. My father didn't raise idiots.
real cases, real people, Judge Judy. Rosemary Harris says her son's former common law wife, Rebecca Cardisco, owes for several unpaid loans. Rosemary claims Rebecca is a drug addict.
So you settled this accident claim despite the fact that you had an attorney. How much did you settle it for?
I think it was around $800. The attorney said that they couldn't get any more, and if they could, it was going to take a long while.
You didn't tell them that you were settling it. You just wanted the money right away.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, I know. That's what you did. You had a lawyer. They got fed up with you because you settled with this company after they had made some expenditures. But if you're doing drugs, you need some money. You need some money for drugs. Look, as far as I can see, she owes you for 3 months' rent and $800 for Christmas. She doesn't know how much she owes you. That's $2,300. Has she, I assume, not given you any child support for the 3 children?
Not as of yet, no.
Have you worked in the last 5 years?
Yes, Your Honor, and he did receive child support last month.
How much?
I gave him $500.
From where?
Between him and his mother.
From where?
I got some money from my grandmother.
From your grandmother?
She gave me some money to give him for the children. He said that he needed it for the children. And I have a job.
Do you use drugs or do you sell them occasionally?
I don't do either. I've been clean.
Judge, there is a judgment now. She's supposed to pay $575 a month.
Good. That's what she's supposed to do. Somebody else is taking care of your children. In the meantime, she owes you $2,300. Miss Cardisco, I wish you good luck in residential treatment. If you want it to be successful, you have to stay there. You can't go in there for 6 weeks, or for 4 weeks, or for 12 weeks and say it's over. You have to stay there. What is it, a year or 18 months? Is that what they want you to stay?
60 days. 60 days.
Nonsense! Nonsense! Bert and I were in family court between us for more years than you're alive. And no residential program where you just go for 60 days is going to keep you off drugs permanently. You have to go into a drug-free environment for a long time. You've been on drugs for at least 3 years. Don't kid yourself. 60 days is not going to do it. 30 days is not going to do it. You have to do it. You have children. You made children. They need you. Do you get it? They need you. Stay with it. Find the right place and stay there. You're a young woman. How old?
25.
25. Got a lot of years ahead. They can be miserable. You can have a miserable life or you can have a happy life. You still have another 50 years of happiness or you have 50 years of misery. Choice is yours. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Becky's nothing but a con.
I do have problems and I have issues, but they're not any better than I am. Any better.
I'm the primary caregiver because Becky's a drug addict.
I never kept her grandchildren from her. I was afraid she was going to try to take off or do something with them. I didn't know what she's capable of. I mean, she just made me look like an idiot in there.
Real estate student Serena Catway is suing her sister, floral designer Suzanne Tyler, for the return of her car and an assault.
Order. All rise.
Yeah, this is case number 290 on the calendar in the matter of Cantway versus Tyler. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have seats, please.
Ms. Cantway, the defendant is your sister.
Yes.
According to your complaints, she has a car that belongs to you that she refuses to return, and at some point in a dispute over the use of that car, your sister assaulted you. Your sister says that the car is hers, you gave it to her, and that she never laid a hand on you. If anything, she was trying to protect you from yourself. So, Ms. Cantway, tell me how it came to be that your sister actually had possession of your car, because clearly the car is in her possession.
Yes. Last year, July 30th of last year, we decided to write up an agreement. I needed to borrow some money. I was having financial difficulties due to a personal situation, and we were going to write up the financial agreement that she was going to loan me the money and use the car. There were other circumstances behind it that she needed help.
Listen to me. Relax. You're going to have a turn to speak. Do you understand? So sometime last year, you were going to write up an agreement.
We did write up an agreement.
Can I see it, please? Now, when did you write up this agreement?
7/30/01.
And what happened? Signed this agreement that you would let her use your 1991 Toyota Tercel and keep it as collateral for $600 loan. You say the loan never came about?
No, the loan never came about.
So, what happened next?
Well, a couple of months went by. We had talked about it a little bit. The situation was good for her at that point because the car that she had been driving, she sold because it was unsafe. She did help me watch my kids, and it was a safe car for her to be able to drive around in. I did have another vehicle at the time.
Where had you gotten this car from?
My mother gave me this car.
When?
Back in 1995.
And you had another car?
At the time that my sister was using mine, yes.
What kind of car did you have?
1996 Camaro.
So what happened a year later?
Well, we had had a few discussions about the car. She was perfectly aware of the situation, that the car was to be used by her, not owned by her. She knew.
Don't tell me what she knew.
Okay, well, as far as my understanding, she knew.
Just don't tell me what she knew.
In February of the following year, I told her that my Camaro is going to have to go. I'm filing bankruptcy. Well, something happened to the Camaro prior to them repoing it on the bankruptcy anyway, but either way, it was going to go. I told her I have to have the vehicle back. We discussed being able to work out terms of sharing the vehicle so that neither one of us would be without a car.
Let me ask you this question, Ms. Cantway. There came a time when you signed over the pink slip to the car to your sister.
Yeah.
When was that?
I think that was probably about a month later, maybe.
A month later when? A month later in?
From the time that we signed the agreement.
So at the end of August?
Yes.
Now, could you explain to me why you signed over the pink slip to your sister?
Because at the time, I did not have a driver's license, and in order to insure the vehicle, it was extremely expensive. The insurance
What do you mean
company,
you didn't have a driver's license? You told me that you had a...
Yeah, I had a car, but that doesn't mean I drove it.
You told me that you had another car that you were driving.
I didn't drive it. I had another car.
Why weren't you driving it?
I didn't have a license.
Why not?
I made a mistake. Something I had to pay for. Has nothing to do with the situation of why I don't have my Tercel now.
If it has anything to do with drinking, it has to do with the situation, because your sister says part of the problem was you're drinking, driving at the same time, and that the altercation that you had that resulted in you say you getting assaulted had to do with her trying to protect you and your children. So what I'm asking you is, you said you'd made a mistake that had anything to do with a DUI that you received.
Yes, ma'am, it did have to do with a DUI.
Okay. So at the time that you gave her the pink slip for the car, that allowed her to put the car in her name.
For insurance purposes.
No. No. That's prima facie evidence of a gift. If you turn over the pink slip, it says that you are now the owner of the car.
I thought I was getting a loan.
But you didn't get the loan.
I didn't get a loan. I gave her time to give me the money. She's supposedly getting a settlement. I needed the money to pay my attorney. She never got a settlement. I never got any money. So I was without my vehicle and without a loan.
So are you telling me, but for the fact that this transaction never took place, you would have sold her your car for $600?
No, collateral.
Well, let us say that she never gave you the money.
Which never happened.
You never took your collateral back because you had already
I tried.
Right.
I tried.
Okay, now let's move on. Let's move on to this assault that you allege.
July 4th, my sister I knew was going to the Baptist church with my mother for the fireworks show, so I called and said that I was going to come and use the car in order to take my children to the fireworks. I received a phone call back that I am not allowed to use the car unless I ask nicely. So I drove over to the house to find out what was wrong, what was going on. We ended up getting into an argument about the agreement, about the car. She grabbed her keys, grabbed her purse, and went down the stairs to get into the vehicle. I sat in the passenger seat, and I turned it off. I said, you're going to...
No, just a minute. She ran downstairs, and you followed her.
I walked downstairs, followed her, yes.
Go ahead.
I turned off the ignition. As I did that, she reached over, grabbed my hand, scratched up my hand right here. I threw the keys out the window as kind of just a response to being grabbed. She started to claw at me. I threw up my hands, grabbed her wrists, and asked her to stop. What are you doing, is what I said.
Okay, Miss Tyler, I'll hear you.
When we did the agreement, I was the one that did that. I said, Serena, I want to give you something for the car. She said, look, I'll sign over the pink slip. I really don't want the money. But I went ahead and did that anyway.
No, that's not what happened, Miss Tyler. Just pay careful attention to me. That's not what happened. Not unless you can show me that the pink slip to the car was signed over on July 30th.
This was signed over on September the 14th.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Right.
So it wasn't signed over on July 30th. Well, let's get your story together.
Okay. So anyway.
Now let's start from the beginning so that you can hopefully get your story together properly. Your best defense is the truth. I want you to understand that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She got really belligerent with me and said something about my son who was brutally murdered 5 years ago. And she started punching on me, and then she threw the keys out the window.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Serena Catway says she used her car as collateral for a loan from her sister, Suzanne Tyler. Serena says the loan never happened and Suzanne won't return the car. Serena also claims Suzanne assaulted her.
You sign this piece of paper.
Right.
You signed it.
Right.
This piece of paper says you're getting this car as collateral towards a loan for $600 in which I will repay her at $25 a month. That's what this says.
Oh, that is not the one. I don't have a copy of that.
Really? Oh, show this
No,
to her.
I
I'm
don't.
sorry.
I don't,
Show that to
Your
her,
Honor.
please. Do you have that?
This is not the one, Serena.
Oh, wait, do you have...
No, I don't have a copy of this.
No, not, do you have a copy of any agreement that you
No,
signed?
no,
Okay, but you never signed that?
no.
Good. Can I have it, please?
That is the agreement, Your Honor.
Okay. I
There
don't
is
know
no
that
other
at all.
agreement.
I don't know that at all. Go ahead.
So on September the 14th, my sister signed over the title of the car.
Tell me about the conversation that you had
I
with her.
did tell her I did want to give her some money for the car. This was before she signed this over. I said, I don't feel right about it. But she said, don't worry about it. Mom got the car for me, and it's like a family heirloom. I want to pass it down to you.
That's not true.
Okay. Can I see the pink slip?
I've
Can I see
never called the
title?
car a family heirloom.
Go ahead.
So then after this, I was always driving her kids around because she had 2 DUIs. So I was doing that for her. And then I think it was a few months after that, Serena had mentioned that she was behind on her Camaro payments. And so it was not too long after that that she totaled the Camaro. And
I didn't total the Camaro.
Yes, you did, Serena.
Ms. Tyler, just talk to me.
She
Don't
totaled the
interrupt me.
Camaro. She didn't have any insurance. The car was going to be repossessed. So she hid the car in the garage for 3 weeks. And she went down and she got an insurance company to insure the car. When her boyfriend got back from Spain, they went and they told the insurance company that he was the one that was driving it, so she
Your
wouldn't
Honor.
get in trouble because she didn't have a license. So then
I was
she
filing
made
bankruptcy. I'm sorry, but I was going to lose the car. I did not wreck it.
Go ahead.
Ma'am, okay. Then after this, it was like a few weeks after that, her and a girlfriend came up to the house.
You're talking about the incident in July?
No,
July
ma'am.
4th?
She's talking.
This was in the spring of 2002 when she wrecked the Camaro.
Okay, she wrecked the Camaro.
Right,
Go
and
ahead.
it was like 2 weeks after that. I was sitting on the front porch, and her and a friend came over, and a friend of hers was outside talking to me, and Serena went in the house, and she said, you need to give the car back to Serena. And I said, what are you talking about?
And what did you do to her?
And I said,
Miss
what are you...
Cantway,
I'm sorry,
I don't
ma'am.
want to hear you.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
I said, I says, what are you talking about? And she says, you need to give that car back to Serena. And I says, this is an agreement between me and Serena. It's really none of your business. And I asked her to leave. And then she got really belligerent with me and said something about my son who was brutally murdered 5 years ago. So I called the cops and asked her to please leave.
Who said that to you, the friend?
Yeah, her
Okay,
friend of
a
hers.
friend. Keep going.
So then I asked, Serena was there, and I came out. I said, Serena, what is... I called the cops because I said, you got to get this woman off my property.
Okay.
So then I told Serena, I says, what is the deal with the car?
Don't interrupt her.
I'm not interrupting.
She didn't
I was raising
interrupt.
my hand.
No. She didn't interrupt you while you were testifying.
Yes.
When she did once, I told her to be quiet, and she waited. That's what I'm telling you. Do you
Okay.
understand?
Yes.
I don't have to say it again. It irritates me to be irritated.
I'm sorry to irritate you.
Good.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Serena Catway says she used her car as collateral for a loan from her sister, Suzanne Tyler. Serena says the loan never happened and Suzanne won't return the car. Serena also claims Suzanne assaulted her.
Keep going.
So then I confronted Serena because she was there, and I said, what is the deal with the car? What is this about this contract that you're talking about? And she says, well, I was using that against Scott in case he wanted to get his hands on the car. And I'm going, what are you talking about? And I want the car back after you get your settlement. And I'm thinking, and I told Serena, I says, well, Serena, I don't know why you...
settlement, Ms. Tyler, is she talking about?
Because I have a workman's comp settlement. I broke my neck, and I'm still recovering from that.
Would you tell me, please, what happened on the 4th of July of 2002?
Yes, Serena wanted to borrow the car, and she had borrowed the car 5 days in a row because I know she was out of vehicle, and I was trying to do the nice thing for her.
And you had your driver's license back at that time?
She did get it back. Yeah. So, but during that week, she had, I know this for a fact because she left the house and she drove the car twice drunk, and she let somebody else drive the car. So, and during that evening on the 3rd, I was sitting on the porch with family members. They were concerned. They said, you're going to have to not let Serena drive the car. So I said, well, I know this is going to be a problem. So the next day when she asked me to use the car, I said, honey, I got errands to run. I said, I'll try to arrange a ride for you, and we'll try to see what we can work out. Well, then she came over shortly after our conversation on the phone, extremely upset with me, yelling and screaming. I said, Serena, quit yelling at me. And then she brought up the contract, the $600. She kept it up, and I said, I've got to get away from here. So I grabbed my keys, and I began to go down the stairs. She followed me. She got in the car. She grabbed the keys. We were like this, and she started punching on me, and then she threw the keys out the window. And then when I waited, I had a second set of keys. When she went back upstairs, I got in the car, rolled up the windows, and I took off, and I went to my cousin's house. And I left town. I left town the following week because I got tired of the abuse, and I moved to Napa.
Miss Cantway, I'm certainly hearing two diverse stories.
I see that, yeah.
My job is made very easy by the fact that neither of you dispute the fact that you signed over the pink slip to this car, not conditionally, not as a lien holder, but for all purposes to your sister. If you had signed it over to her and been a lien holder for $600, because that was the condition of giving it to her, that she would pay you $600 or give you $600, there would have been a lien on the car for $600.
Yeah.
But you did not. You signed it over so that she is now the owner of that car.
Yep.
So your lawsuit with regard to the return of the car is dismissed. With regard to the assault, since I find that this was her car and you had absolutely no right to get into her car, to pull the keys out of the ignition, to stop the car.
Your Honor.
I'm speaking. She says it's because you had either let someone else drive the car or
nobody else
family
drove the
I'm
car.
speaking, or people told her that you were driving the car while you were intoxicated. And if it's her car in her name, she is liable for anything that happens to the car. In any event, you had no right to get into the car, pull the ignition keys out, toss them out, and if she scratched your hand at the time that you were struggling over the car keys, she has a right to do that.
Yes.
Because it's her car.
I had driven the car drunk, Your Honor.
No, it doesn't make any difference.
I took the dog to the vet to be put down, and I picked his daughter up from school.
Let's say you weren't driving the car drunk. You still have absolutely no right to get into her car and touch her property, and she has the right to use whatever force is necessary to get your hands off the ignition keys. And if she scratched your hand while she was doing it, she scratched your hand. That's it. I mean, it's certainly very sad
She neglected to mention to you what she did to the other girl who was supposedly so belligerent at her house. The other girl mentioned, why don't you give the vehicle back to Serena? It is her car. You know what she did to that girl? She grabbed her by the bottom of her neck and scratched her all the way up to her ears.
Now, if this person that you brought to the house said something to her about her child who was murdered in the course
they said nothing about that.
You were inside. You were inside. You were not outside.
I
when
was
that
outside.
No, I don't. Miss Cantway,
the porch is
I don't
right
believe
there.
a whole lot of what you're telling me. What I do believe is that you gave your sister your car because you had another car. You had no use to have for this second car. You had a newer car.
I wish
the
I was
newer.
that
I'm
rich.
speaking. The newer car got repossessed. You said, I want my car back. She said, I'm not giving you your car back. She said, but I'll share it with you. I'll share it with you. You use it when you need it, and I'll use it when I need it. And then you had an argument.
No.
And you want a court to resolve it as a family dispute. I don't intend to do that. Case is dismissed. That's all.
Oh, no excuse. You're going to step out.
She's got a lot of animosity to me, and it really hurts my feelings, and I wish it didn't have to come to this.
I just found out the blood's not thicker than water.
She was demanding and wanted it back, and it wasn't just going to work out that way for her this time.
According to her, I'm the spoiled one that gets her way all the time. Well, obviously not, huh?
Maybe somewhere down the road we can settle it.
20-year-old deli clerk Stephanie Bartos is suing her former friend, 22-year-old telecommunications salesman Moses Jones, for a series of unpaid loans.
Order. All rise.
Now, this is case number 78 on the calendar in the matter of Bartos versus Jones. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Miss Bartos, you and the defendant had been good friends for a very long time. How many years had you been good friends?
Between 4 to 5.
And you claim a series of loans to him.
Yes.
Mr. Jones, while acknowledging that you gave him some money, is that right, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
And while acknowledging that you purchased some things for him, said everything that you gave him were gifts, and that you're suing him for a reason that he's going to tell me later. So, when did you make the first loan to him?
February 28th of this year.
Under what circumstances?
That he was to pay me back as soon as possible.
Now, tell me what he said, what you said, what it was for, whether it was cash. Tell me what it was.
Okay, I received a settlement check for an automobile accident, and I picked him up from his home, and he said he had to get some clothes. We got the clothes, shoes, all that stuff, and he stepped outside and he asked me if I could pay for it for him.
Is that what he said? Could you pay for this for me?
If I could do him a large favor.
Yeah.
And if I could pay for it for him.
Why did he want you to pay for it for him?
I do not know.
So what did
Obviously,
you say?
he didn't have money.
So what did you say to him?
I said, under the terms you pay me back. He was my best friend.
Well, you didn't say to him, under the terms you'll pay me back. That doesn't sound like something that comes out of your mouth, Ms. Bartow. So you have to be very careful about what you say to me, because I can usually tell the truth.
Okay.
Okay? He said, he stepped outside and he said, can you pay for this, or can you take care of this? You must have said, why? How do you go shopping without money? I mean, that would be normal, even with your best friend. So let's hear what transpired in February of '02. Well, he came outside and said, can you take care of this for me? And what did you say to him?
Sure.
You said sure.
Under the terms that he was to pay me back, it was a loan. He said, could you loan this to me?
Now you gave me two different scenarios. You said, can you take care of this for me? Can you pay for this for me? And now you say, could you loan me the money to pay for this? Which one was it?
It was a loan. It was a loan.
I'm looking for the words, Miss Bartow, so you're not cooperating with me. You're looking to the end result. I am looking for the words that were exchanged. Are you following me?
Yes.
Maybe I'm not going to get the answer from you, so forget it. Mr. Jones, you remember February 28th of this year?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about the clothes shopping.
I had to get some new clothes. Stephanie was a good friend. She wanted to go with me, so we went down to the shop. I actually left my wallet at home that day. That's why I forgot, just running out, getting everything together. She was on her way.
So you left your wallet at home?
Yeah. Okay. That's why I asked her.
What was in your wallet?
My credit card.
So you were intending to pay for the clothes with your credit card?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, I went to look for my wallet to pay. Didn't have it on me. I said, Stephanie, can you pay for it? She said, sure. And that was that.
Well, did you mention to Stephanie, because you must have mentioned to Stephanie, can you pay for this for me? I left my wallet home.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that your story?
Yes, ma'am.
Does that sound familiar to you?
No, it doesn't.
I want to tell you something. She is so fixed at getting her loan across that she's not paying attention. Maybe she just don't get it. But according to you, that's what happened, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, when was the second money that you gave him, madam?
March 8th.
Go ahead.
And he had phoned me a couple days prior. He said that he was in financial debt. He couldn't make rent. He didn't get his promotion through his job. And he asked me if he could borrow some more money. And he said that his only other means was to do something illegal. And I told him, I said, you have a 1-year-old son. You don't want to jeopardize that. And so he came up to my job on March 8th, and I loaned him $1,000 so he would not come up here to L.A. to do something illegal.
How much were his clothes?
A total of $445.47.
So tell me about the $1,000, sir.
I had talked to Stephanie a couple of days prior, and I told her that, you know, I was trying to get a couple of things moving quickly.
Well, I don't know what that means. You're
well,
in the moving
I was trying to get a couple of, you know, things that I wanted, and I didn't get my promotion.
I don't understand what you mean. You're trying to get a couple of things that you wanted. What does that mean?
Like, I wanted to buy a new outfit. I wanted to get some stuff. I wanted to just buy some more stuff that I wanted personally for myself. You know, and then I got hit with having to take care of rent at the same time, and I didn't manage it correctly. I had told Stephanie what was going on within my life, and that I had a deal going down, which was not a very honest deal, but I had a deal going down that was roughly about $2,000. And she said, you know what, hey, you know, I'm your friend. I don't want you to do that. You know, I don't want you to put your life in jeopardy. You know, whenever you need something, you could call upon me. You know, I told her, I was like, hey, you know, I don't know when I'll be able to, you know, have this money again. I don't know what, you know.
Now, what does that mean? I don't know
I'm
when
sorry.
I'll be able to
I'm
have
sorry.
this money again. What does that mean, Mr. Jones?
I don't know when.
You don't know when you'll be able to pay her back. Is that what you meant? Is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know when I'll be able to pay you back.
Right.
And what did she say?
She said, don't worry about it. You know, you're my friend. Here you go. And she just wrote the check to me.
Okay. And what was the next amount of money that you claimed that you loaned to him, Miss Bartos?
We went the next week. We went to tattoo parlor, and he wanted to get a tattoo on his right upper arm with his son's name, and I paid for it under the pretenses he was to pay me back.
Okay, Miss Bartos, that I'm not even entertaining. The tattoo. Do you understand? If you're dumb enough
I'm not
to
dumb.
give, yes you are.
No.
If you're dumb enough to give him money for clothes, if you're dumb enough to give him $1,000 because you say he was going to be evicted, then you don't indulge him in paying for a tattoo with his son's name on it and expect to get paid. Not from me, because that's the height of stupidity. Now,
But he was to pay me back with his income tax return.
I don't care what you say. I don't believe that. Who is this person?
My father.
Even your father understands that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
The tattoo was already starting.
So what? What's your son's name?
Moses the Fifth.
So then you can have Mo.
And later today,
My tools.
I'm not interested in your tools that were in the car, sir. Mr. Green, do I look stupid to you?
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Stephanie Bartos says former friend Moses Jones owes for several unpaid loans. Moses says he never agreed to pay.
Somebody has already borrowed almost $1,500 from you because he needed it. The first thing he needed were clothes. The second thing he needed was money so that he wouldn't get evicted. Somebody who needs money so that they're not going to get evicted doesn't spend a couple of $100s to get a tattoo on his arm. And if you are not stupid, then you say to him, Mr. Jones, you have a lot of debt. You don't need a tattoo on your arm.
Well,
so I'm not paying for that, whether you say you're going to pay me back or not pay me back.
Well, initially, I went there to get a tattoo on my back shoulder of my daughter's name. And he sat down, and the tattoo was already started. He didn't have the money, so I went with his friend to go get the money. The tattoo was already starting.
So what? What's your son's name?
Moses the Fifth.
So then you can have Mo. You understand what I'm saying?
Order.
Okay. Shh. Then you find out, because you called him, and you find out that he got married. Is that right?
Yes.
Because that's his defense. He says, you're really mad about all these things because this very best friend of yours had gotten married 2 years before and didn't tell you. Right? Mm-hmm. How come you neglected to tell your very good friend that you got married, sir?
Well, that's a weird situation that happened.
That's not weird.
It is weird if I were to get into the details about it. But, you know, it was a situation that I wasn't very comfortable with, and I was in the process of a separation. That's why...
Well, you weren't separated at the time you got married.
No, I wasn't.
No.
But
So
when I got married, me and her weren't even really talking. There was a 2-year gap where we didn't even talk.
but then somebody picked up a phone, somebody met in the street and whatever, and you say, hi, how you doing? No, good. How are you doing? Anything happening? What's doing? Yes, I got married.
Right.
But you didn't say that.
No, because...
Did you say that? Did you tell her you were married when you took the $1,000 from her?
No, I was...
Were you living with your wife at the time?
No, I wasn't.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And I was there. I've gone there before.
All right, Miss Bartos, despite yourself and in spite of yourself and your testimony, Mr. Jones has cooked his own goose because Mr. Jones testified that he was intending to pay for his... Stop smiling, it's irritating. Mr. Jones has indicated that he was intending to pay for these clothes, but for the event of the lost wallet or the left home wallet, he was going to pay for his clothes. So what, you keep shaking your head no. You're so thick and so fixed in your position that you're not paying attention.
I'm paying attention.
Then try to pay attention. Which indicates that he had intended to pay for his own clothes, which would have been very natural for him to say, I left my wallet home, could you cover this for me, and I'll pay you back. Not I left my wallet at home, so would you buy these clothes for me because I don't have my wallet, and I'm not going to pay you back. That's what he said, because he's not too swift. And as we come to the $1,000, I also believe, based upon his testimony, that he led you to believe that he was going to pay you back at some unspecified time. Because according to him, he said, I don't know when I can pay you back. And you said, that's all right. But the intention was to pay you back. And that's what you relied on. So I'm entering a judgment in your favor for those two loans. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,445. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He lied to me. He had been married, never told me.
You know, I don't feel it was a betrayal just because I didn't tell her.
He stood up there and blatantly lied.
Sales rep Marcia Hertz is suing strip mall manager Miguel Gonzalez for the value of her father's medical files and for harassment. Miguel is countersuing for defamation of character.
Order. All rise.
Your Honor, this is case number 75 on the calendar in the matter of Hertz versus Gonzalez. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have seats, please.
Miss Hertz, your father was a doctor?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of a doctor was he?
He was a chiropractic physician, ma'am.
And he passed away in April, is that
March
right?
28th.
According to your complaint, your father had a medical practice and his landlord was the defendant.
No, ma'am. Mr. Gonzalez is the strip mall building manager.
Okay, he was the manager of the building.
Yes, ma'am.
And you tried to get into your father's office in order to retrieve his files after his death.
Yes, ma'am, according to probate code.
Just answer my questions. Mr. Gonzalez would not let you into the building or your father's office when you wanted to get into the office, and it is your claim that because you could not get into the office at an appropriate time, you lost a substantial amount of money because you could have sold those files to another doctor if you had been able to do it sooner, and you're seeking damages in the amount of $5,000. Mr. Gonzalez has a reason that he says that he did not allow you to remove the files when you wanted to. He's counterclaiming for defamation because he says that you're bad-mouthing him to other people, calling him a tyrant. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
I want you to forget about your counterclaim. Forget about the counterclaim. But we're going to get to the plaintiff's claim, which I find rather interesting. All right, your father died. Did he die suddenly on March 28th?
No, ma'am. He entered the hospital with viral pneumonia on March 23rd and passed away on March 28th.
How old a man was he?
He had been 84 for 6 weeks.
Had he been in full-time practice up until the time he got sick?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, on what date was the first date that you tried to get into his office?
I arrived in Los Angeles April 3rd in the evening.
On April 3rd?
Yes, ma'am. I was unable to get here sooner than that because
So you were not here when your father died?
No, no, ma'am.
You were not here when he was in the hospital?
No, ma'am.
Where do you live?
Chicago.
Well, were you advised that he was sick and in the hospital on the 23rd of March?
Yes, ma'am. However, my father was always a very strong, healthy person. We're into natural health and healing. And we never expected him to be, we never expected this to happen.
How many children are there?
Just myself.
So who was with him when he was in the hospital? Nobody?
No one.
Oh. So you got here after your father died?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you get here after the funeral?
No, ma'am. The service, I went to the mortuary on April 4th, identified his body at the hospital, took him to the mortuary, and made the arrangements then. We had a memorial service for him.
Just a minute. So he died on March 28th, 29th, 30th, April 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. 7 days later,
yes, ma'am,
you managed to find a way to come from Chicago to Los Angeles.
Yes, ma'am.
Doesn't sound like a hell of a lot of devotion for me because all the healing didn't help him. He died on March 28th.
We never expected him to die. We thought he would be back in the office.
He did die
yes,
on March 28th. What took you 7 days to travel from Chicago to Los Angeles?
I had to make arrangements to take care of my apartment and as well as my birds. And I also had business arrangements to make.
And what did you do when you got here on the 4th of April?
Went to the office building in order to start taking inventory of the office.
Okay. Now, at that point, had you had anything from the probate court giving you the authority to go in there?
Ma'am, the estate was under $100,000. No court supervision was necessary according to probate code 13100, etc.
Were you armed with that information when you came to the office?
No, ma'am.
So, Mr. Gonzalez wouldn't let you in?
No, ma'am.
Good. That's exactly what he should have done. Should not have let you in to go through anything. He doesn't know who you are. As far as he knows, there's a will, and he left all of his estate and all of his property to Goodwill. He doesn't know if you have authority. You may be his only child, but he may not have liked you. So he could have left all of his property to somebody else. Isn't that right?
My father died intestate.
He doesn't know that. So you went there on the 4th of April, and he said you can't come in. What happened next?
Mr. Gonzalez had been apprised by a volunteer that worked for my father as a
Don't
volunteer.
tell me what he had been apprised in hearsay conversation with anybody. He has a tenant who died, leaving property in their office, and he is liable if, perchance, they find a will of your father's that says, I leave all of my possessions to whatever medical school he went to, whatever university he went to. And you go in there and you say, I'm his daughter, I'm entitled to everything. How does he know that you're entitled to anything? You had nothing from a court?
At that time, no.
Fine. When did you go back?
I received a phone call on April 13th, Saturday, from Mr. Gonzalez telling me that he was putting all of my father's possessions, office possessions, into storage, which I would be responsible for paying for. And if any of the movers hurt themselves, I would also be responsible for their medical bills. Mr. Gonzalez,
He can't do that either.
Mr. Gonzalez,
If he did it, he can't do that either, because you're not responsible for anything. You're not responsible financially for anything, and you're not responsible if these movers get hurt schlepping the files. So if he said that to you, he's 100% wrong. So far, I got a lot of lawyers here. Go ahead. So that's April 13th.
I was also told that my father's files, patient files, needed to be put into storage for 7 years by another practitioner. He gave me the names and phone numbers of 2 chiropractors who would be happy to store my father's files.
Fine. So you said no, thank you. Well,
the files are the heart of the business. They're a sacred trust, and they are saleable items.
Ms. Hertz, let's get on with it. Stop with, you're pulling at my heartstrings. It took you 7 days to get from Chicago to Los Angeles. It was more important to take care of your birds than it was to come to say goodbye to your father. I have very little sympathy for that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
My father overpaid on his last month's rent.
Get on with it. That's not what you're suing him for. You keep making things up as you're going along, madam.
And later today,
I don't know how long you've been drinking, but I would guess, based upon my experience in the court, that you've been drinking a long time. That's not the way to bring up a child.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Marcia Hertz says when her father passed away, building manager Miguel Gonzalez kept her from retrieving files from his business.
April 13th, he said he's putting the stuff in storage. What did you do next?
On the 15th, I arrived at the office early in the morning to make sure that the removal of my father's property did not happen. 7:30 in the morning, Mr. Gonzalez knocked on the door wanting me to sign a piece of paper. I refused to do so because there were no copies of it. He told me that he would make copies of this paper after I had signed it. And I said, no, make copies first. He wouldn't tell me what it was. Next thing he said was that he was going to call the LAPD to have me arrested for trespassing. They arrived 5 minutes later
and
threatened me with arrest that if I did not sign this piece of paper. I was bullied and coerced into signing it. It turned out to be a release of tenancy by April 30th, which gave me the entire month of April to remove my father's possessions, not by April 15th.
Okay, so?
Well, the tenant paid the rent for the month of April, which gave me until April 30th.
Well, that's what that says. You have until the 30th.
Yes, ma'am.
So?
And I did not have a problem with that.
So?
However, in here, because of the if I may continue?
Go ahead.
Because of the termination of the month-to-month tenancy is terminated by the death of the tenant, landlord is permitting Marcy Hertz on behalf of and as representative of the estate of Albert Hertz, hereinafter Marcy Hertz, to enter the property for the sole purpose of removing possessions of the tenant. Marcy Hertz takes full responsibility for all property removed from the premises, including but not limited to the chiropractic records contained herein.
Miss Hertz, I don't get the problem, madam. I don't get the problem at all. You signed something that says you take full responsibility for the files as a representative of the estate, even though he doesn't know you're a representative of the estate. And you have to be out of the premises by April 30th.
Which is the reason I was here. However, on April 13th, he threatened to remove the contents of Dad's office.
So? He didn't?
No, he did not.
So what? What are you here for?
I'm here because my father overpaid on his last month's rent back in 1987.
That's not part of your claim. That's not part of your claim.
All right.
Then what are you here for?
I'm here because the overpayment was more than 50% of what his current rent was, which would have given me into the middle of May to sell the files.
Get on with it. That's not what you're suing him for. You keep making things up as you're going along, madam.
Excuse me, ma'am. The value of the files decreases every day. The goodwill.
So?
The files are now worthless.
Listen, you were able to get the files as of April 15th. Is that right?
Ma'am, I was able to gain entrance to the office.
You were able, once you signed that document, assuming responsibility, on April 15th, you were able to get the files. Is that right or wrong?
You are correct, ma'am.
Good. And you say that because you weren't able to go and get the files either on the 4th or the 8th, the value of the files diminished because it took an extra week. Is that right?
I had to find another chiropractor to take my father's practice over.
Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Each day of his passing, the files diminish.
Then, Miss Hertz, I would have suggested that if that's the way you felt, you should have made it your business to get there a week earlier after your father died. Because if you had gotten there on the 28th, you would have resolved this matter by the 8th of April.
No,
but you chose to take care of your birds instead of coming and taking care of your father's business, and you want somebody else to be responsible for that. It's ludicrous. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She was going around my neighborhood with my peers saying that I am mafia connected, that I have LAPD people in my pocket, intimidating her.
I knew very well who I was before I even came down. We were in telephone contact prior to my coming down here.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Sims versus Cruz. Step forward, please.
Serviceman Billy Sims is suing the daughter of his late father's girlfriend, 21-year-old Christina Cruz. Billy says Christina stole a cell phone off of his father's dead body.
Mr. Sims, your father passed away in June of this year?
That's correct, Your Honor.
According to your complaints, he passed away. He had a heart attack in his car.
That's correct, Your Honor.
And the defendant was in the car with him, along with her boyfriend?
I'm not exactly sure if she was either in the car or if she was following behind him in another vehicle, but they were traveling together.
How did they know each other, do you know?
The defendant's mother had a relationship with my father.
Is that right? So your mom and his dad
were dating.
When his father had the heart attack, were you in the car with him?
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh. And this is all about a cell phone.
That's correct.
Because it is your claim that the defendant took your dad's cell phone after he had the heart attack and died.
Yes, Your
in
Honor.
their presence
Yes,
in the
Your
car.
Honor.
And Ms. Cruz says that she has the cell phone, but that he gave it to her.
Okay.
June what did your father pass away?
It was June the 18th of this year, Your Honor.
What time?
I have a copy of his death certificate.
May I see it, please?
Sure. The coroner put his time of death at about 2:30 p.m. Of course, the...
Okay. Did there ever come a time when you got property that was on his person at the time that he died?
Yes, Your Honor.
When was that?
The following day, on the 19th, that morning, the county coroner called me and my brother to come and get his personal effects. Now, we had to get his vehicle.
Okay. What personal effects did you pick up?
Okay, I picked up his wallet, his checkbook.
Okay, wallet. Was there anything in the wallet?
His identification and some of those things.
Any cash?
There was no cash in his wallet, Your Honor.
Do you know where your father was going on the 18th of June?
Yes, I do, Your Honor. He was doing, my father was retired. He spent most of his time just doing yard work for people, doing handyman jobs really for little or no pay. and he was assisting the defendant's mother on doing some of this work.
Okay. When was the last time you had spoken to your father from the cell phone?
The morning before his death, probably maybe about an hour or an hour and a half before his actual death.
Did you call him or did he call you?
He called me twice, Your Honor.
From his cell phone. Prior to that, for what period of time had your father had this cell phone?
He's probably had the phone almost 2 years. He's had this cell phone, Your Honor.
And is that the phone that he uses primarily for his communication with you?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, now, Ms. Cruz, it is your claim, your defense, and you say you do have the phone, and you did use the phone, but that it was a gift to you.
Yes, Honor.
Now, I'd like you to tell me your version of the events when Mr. Sims' dad picked you up, because that's what happens. He picked you up along with this person?
Yeah.
Who was this
my
person?
Witness. Oh, that's my boyfriend.
So let me hear. He came and picked you up at your mom's home?
No, he came over my house and picked us up, and we were going to go swimming. But first, we were going to do some stuff for my mama.
Okay. Now tell me about the cell phone.
And he took me and my boyfriend to the side. And
to the side of what?
Of his truck.
Yes.
And said, y'all are like my kids and everything, and I'm going to give you my cell phone. We have a deal. You pay me $50 a month. And we agreed on it. All three of us agreed on it.
Just a second. So you're saying he took you on the side of the truck and said, you're like my kids.
Yes, Your Honor.
And I want you to have my cell phone. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did he have another cell phone?
No, he
just had that one cell phone.
Just that one and the house phone.
Well, but he had the cell phone. That was his cell phone.
Yeah.
And as long as you knew him, he had only used that cell phone. Is that right?
Yes, Your
Is
Honor.
that right? So on that day, he said to you, you're like my kids, I want you to have the cell phone.
Yes, Your Honor.
Liar! You're a liar.
There was other witnesses there.
Bald-faced liar. You took his cell phone off his dead body.
No,
and you probably also took the cash out of his wallet before the police got there. Not a question in my mind. Why would a man, unless he anticipates his own death, who has used a cell phone for 2 years to communicate with the rest of the world, all of a sudden take you and this person who was sitting over here and say, I want you to have my method of communication? Why in the world would he do that? You're like my kids. If you're like my kids, then he goes and buys you a cell phone and said, here's a cell phone.
No, because he got tired of carrying it around and everything.
It was too heavy. It was too, just a minute. Please do me a favor. Put your hand down. I don't have to listen to that baloney anymore. It's baloney. Could I please see the expenses that you are claiming for the cell phone?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did they use it, by the way?
Yes, Your Honor. They used it. Those 3 days, there were approximately about 400 minutes that were used. And I have those.
Well, just a minute. How much was the cost?
The total cost for the cell phone minutes, it was 35 cents a minute. I don't have that itemized. But.
Well, just a minute. Did you ever get a bill from them for this?
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, I want to see the bill that you got.
This has the outstanding minutes that he had left over in excess that we had to terminate because it could have been transferred over to his next of kin. That's what the first statement says. That's from the wireless people.
No. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Sims. Listen to me. What you're saying is he had sort of credits, that it didn't cost you hundreds and hundreds of dollars because they took the phone, but that you as his beneficiary or next of kin could have used those minutes if you wanted to from his cell phone plan. Is that
Yes,
what your
yes, Your
plan is? Get a life. Where's the phone?
We don't have it anymore.
What'd you do with it?
The guy that was staying with Billy, his daddy, took it. And it's my brother.
Your Honor, there was no one staying with my father. He lived alone. But we asked her the Friday when we first found out that she was the one that had the phone. When she returned the phone call, she said that we were not going to get the phone back, that she got to the phone before we did, and that he's dead, and she's just as entitled to it as...
Let me tell you something. Some people will be happy, productive, moral people their whole lives, and they will raise, hopefully, happy, productive, moral offspring. And some will not. We're not talking about a lot of money, but we are talking about those people who have the capability of being moral people and those who lack the capability of being moral people. Yes, we're talking about a $40 phone bill, which you're going to get, and let's say your father really had a state-of-the-art telephone. A really good one costs $150, is that right?
Yes,
really
Your Honor,
good
it's
one?
on the estimate.
$150 plus 40 is $190. You don't get paid for the minutes, right? And I want you to, you have to feel sorry for them. I want you to feel sorry for them. Don't be angry with them. They're never going to be able to get smarter. They're never going to get more morals that anywhere relate to what civilized people do, because anybody that could take property off a dead person, which is what they did, will never change. Because I don't believe that anybody, your father's age, drives a car and rides around with not a dollar in his wallet.
That's correct, Your Honor.
I don't believe that that happens. That doesn't happen. So if you're a death scavenger, you're never going to change. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $190. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
We didn't took it. He gave us it.
There are people in this world that are going to act that way, so instead of being angry, pity them, and that's what I do.
I felt sorry too because he died on me.
I'm very happy with the judge's decision, and I'm glad that we can finally put this part of my father's life to rest.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Barnett versus Jimenez. Step forward, please.
Teacher Eileen Barnett is suing her former roommate's boyfriend, 25-year-old electrician Adrian Jimenez, for crashing into her car and her home.
Miss Barnett, you know the defendant because somehow you live in the same house that his girlfriend lives in?
Yes, I rent a room to his girlfriend.
You're not going to have to say much because I really need the explanation from Mr. Jimenez. According to your complaint, your car is parked in front of the house. Mr. Jimenez was coming to visit his girlfriend. He pulled into the driveway, I guess, of the house and hit your car. Your car then proceeded to roll into the house, causing a substantial amount of damage to both your car and the house.
Yes, ma'am.
You're suing for both.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Mr. Jimenez acknowledges the fact that his car, according to him, tapped. Is that right, Mr. Jimenez?
That's correct.
Tapped your car, and as a result of that tap, it went into the house. He, however, says it is not his fault because you left your car in neutral and parked it in not a great spot. So therefore, she is responsible. Is that right, for her car going into the house? Now, I want you to be quiet, Mr. Jimenez, because I'm going to ask you a series of questions. You see that picture that's right in front of you?
Yes.
I want you to keep looking at it. I want you to stare at it, sir. Did it move?
Not yet, no.
How long do you think you can look at that picture until it moves?
Not long enough.
Now, let's say you take your finger and tap the picture. Just tap it a little bit. See if you can get it to... See how it moved?
It budged.
Just a second. You see how it moved?
Yes, I did.
All right. Her car may or may not have been parked in neutral. Her car may or may not have had the emergency brake on. That is not the reason the car moved. The reason the car moved is because you hit it. Do you understand? Like the picture moved, not because you were willing it to move, but because your finger touched it.
Okay, I even gave her money towards the payment, okay, for me to be able to fix it. I told her, my estimate, okay, for my friends, I can get it paid, work done for $100, give or take.
Yeah, it's just a minute. Go ahead. So?
Now, when I went to her and I gave her that money and I asked her for a receipt, she didn't. She told me she wasn't going to give me one. What more can I say?
Can I see the photographs of the damage, please, first?
Okay.
He gave you $100.
Right here is the photograph of the driveway where he veered off right before he hit the rose bushes. That would be right before the house.
Can I see a picture of the damage, please?
Okay, and right here is rose bush damage. Damage to the house. That is the damage to the house. Mind you, the wood and the grate were not on there. They were put on there for fear of burglary afterwards because there was an open hole in my house.
Your Honor.
Due to the fact of my car, after being pushed by his car
Rose bushes.
into my house, took out the whole window. We had to remove the bay window.
Okay, now can I please see the cost of replacing the bay window?
Okay, this is the cost of the bay window alone without the labor.
Okay.
Okay, I'm having a relative install it, so...
Okay, shh.
Now, Your Honor, she was already having her house remodeled, okay?
When her car went into the house, did it go into the bay window?
It went right underneath it.
Did it break the window?
No, it did not.
It didn't.
And it didn't, and it already had the fence on it.
That is a lie, Your Honor.
Just, of course it is. You mean she just put this wood up in front of where the window was for no reason?
You know what? I don't know why she put the wood there, okay? The railing was already there. The window
No.
didn't break, otherwise I would have seen
That
glass.
is another lie, Your Honor.
Okay.
Now, if my truck hit her car with the force and momentum that she
Now,
says...
can I please see the damage to the
This
car?
is a matter, yeah. This is
How
Can
come
I
there's-
see photograph of the car damage?
I do not have the photograph for the car damage because I was under the assumption that he was going to pay for it. So it was already fixed, and then he denied payment. He told me to go ahead and get an estimate, and I went and got it fixed. And he's saying he can go to pick apart and fix my car for $100 when there's clearly a lot more damage to the car than that.
Because the
front bumper hit the
front of the car,
Her
and the right rear bumper was hit by his car.
Yes. So it was damage to both ends. And for $100, he smacked down the table. He said he could fix it and pick apart for that kind of
rear
damage.
bumper, which is what I'm responsible for.
No, you're not.
Why not? That's
Because
what I did.
Hey,
That's what a homeowner's insurance is for.
listen to me. Listen to me, sir. You're entitled to the damage you caused.
I was parked halfway on the driveway.
So what?
I mean,
It's
how
my
many people, how
driveway.
many,
So
how many people get out their car to go get the mail and leave the car running, okay, in neutral without the emergency brake on? I mean, Your Honor.
People that were going to go back and get in
you know
the
what?
car to
That's
drive up to
basic
their house
driver's ed,
afterwards.
Listen
okay?
to me, sir.
And if you park on a slope, you turn your wheel.
Listen to me,
You don't
sir.
aim it to your house.
Why did you hit her car?
Why did I barely tapped it when I was trying to move around it?
You're so full of baloney. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,417. Listen, you do something wrong, you pay for it. She doesn't have to say to you, you and one of your street mechanic friends can fix my car, and she doesn't have to leave her window boarded up. You caused this accident. You. Just like that thing didn't move until you moved it with your hand. Her car would not have moved unless you hit it.
Your Honor, she was already having her house redone.
Period. So what? You just helped it along.
Hey, why didn't I
You
just
helped it
pay for
along.
you know?
That's all. Step out.
I'm not saying it's her fault. I'm saying she just doesn't know how to drive.
I watched my car just go right into my house and break everything, run over my roses.
She wants me to go ahead and redo her car also, I mean, and her house, and her garden? Come on now.
He got exactly what he deserved.
Breached their contract to buy her baby shoe business.
All right, what looks to be a complicated case actually is merely just a contract case. Ms. Dion, you had a side business of making baby shoes, and I assume that those are the baby shoes.
Yes, it was a full-time business.
The defendants had a children's clothing website, and they became familiar with your baby shoes, and they were interested in buying your business. You entered into a contract wherein I believe that they agreed to pay you $30,000 for the business. Is that correct?
That was the asking price. There was never a written contract signed.
That's incorrect.
Just a second. You entered into a deal for $30,000 and an employment contract without a written contract?
There's times over
No,
the 2
you
years.
you can't change a written contract. Was it a written contract that was signed by both parties?
No, it was
He
never
refused
signed.
to sign it, even though he was the one that wrote it himself and emailed it to me himself.
You called him within the period that you were supposed to be working for him and said, this is too much for me, I can't do it. I read your complaint. Do you understand? That's a...
Caitlin Dion claims her former employer, Scott Everson, breached their contract to buy her baby shoe business.
Well, then there was never a meeting of the minds. May I see that? This is going to be a much easier case than I thought.
That's also incorrect. I have
Just
audio.
a second. This is going to be a much easier case than I thought.
That's the latest draft of an agreement of which there were several drafts prior to that.
Listen to me, sir. Doesn't make any difference to me. She's suing you because you paid her pursuant, I assume, under this non-contract, according to you, $31,000.
Never agreed to.
Neither was the $30,000. Do you understand? You can't have it both ways,
It's a
Ms. Dion.
complicated case.
It's not complicated. It's very simple. You didn't have a written contract. If you had an oral contract, that's one thing.
I do have that, actually. I have audio that we can play right now telling him that he promises to pay me $30,000 regardless of how long I worked for him.
Just a second. The original deal that you had was for $30,000.
There was actually an original deal that
you both thought was reasonable. You agreed to accept $30,000 from him for the business, and you would stay with the business for a period of time, either 4 months or 6 months. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but that is totally reasonable because he wasn't in the baby shoes business. According to your complaint, you were going through some marital difficulty, you were going through other major problems, and you called him within the period that you were supposed to be working for him and said, this is too much for me, I can't do it. I read your complaint. Do you understand? That's a breach of your contract, if there ever was a contract. That was, listen to me carefully.
Look in the contract, it says that he would take away $400 per week that I did not work for him.
This is $31,000.
He did not. He gave me $5,000.
Just a second. He says he gave you over the period of time $30,000. Did you give her?
I have to.
But just a second.
In the period of time that we've known Ms. Dion and worked with her, I've given her $31,668.
I have proof that says otherwise.
I'd like to see it.
Here are my hourly
No, not that.
Those are paycheck stubs, of which of the $31,000 she received,
that were not
$10,000
told me today.
What was I supposed to do? I signed the contract and gave it back to him.
Then you should have done nothing. If he didn't sign it, you should have done nothing.
I was a single mother at the time.
Ms. Dion, you have to understand, this is a court.
He had all of my assets.
This is a court. It's not Dr. Phil. You had no written contract, and if you had no written contract, you had to have an oral contract.
I do.
No, then you had to have an oral contract, and that oral contract clearly did not reflect a meeting of the minds of both of you. If he didn't sign this contract, and whether it was for your business or for your employment, are you saying to me that you did not receive from him? I'm just curious, because he has the documentation to show me that you did not receive from him $31,000. You did not receive from him during a period of time $31,000.
I did not. That's incorrect. I have my paychecks. I have the down payment that he made. I have the installments that he made.
Just a second.
All of which add up to $31,000.
Just a second. Add them up, and I asked you a question. How much was it? Your paychecks and the down payment he made?
For my business. My paychecks do not matter. They were not a part of the business agreement.
Did you file your case in small claims?
That is not a part of my business.
Did you file your case in small claims court?
Yes.
Working
hourly was not a part of the contract.
Pay careful attention to me. If you filed your case in small claims court, I'm going to give you an opportunity to go back there. If you think you have a case, I do not. I do not believe that there was a meeting of the minds when there's a contract unsigned for over $10,000. That's absolutely ludicrous. As long as I'm comfortable with the fact that you got paid during a period of time $30,000 so that you worked to explain your position to a judge in either Superior Court, because I don't think small claims courts hear cases up to $10,000. I don't know where you're from. Where are you from?
It's actually $11,000.
Utah.
In Utah.
Well, go back to Utah. This case is dismissed without prejudice. We're done.
This court is adjourned.
I reminded him over the period of 2 months.
Paid her $31,000 for her time in her business.
Give me the contract. Give me the contract. Give me the contract.
Order.
Mr. Hastings, you and the defendant were roommates. I'm not quite understanding.
Yes, correct.
Clearly, whether you were roommates or in a relationship. What was it?
It was just roommates.
When did you start to be roommates?
In September of 2020.
Did you know each other before?
Yes.
How?
We were just friends that met at a party and hung out often.
Starting when?
That was in December of 2019.
And what made you decide to room together?
We were both looking for a place to live, so since we both needed that, we found this apartment together.
2 bedrooms?
Correct.
And you moved in with animals,
Correct.
I understand from the complaint.
Correct.
Cats?
Yes.
How many?
I had 2.
I had 2.
I didn't ask you anything yet. You had 2. And Miss Camera had 2. Any other animals?
No.
So you started to live together during COVID?
Correct.
Were you working?
Yes.
Was Miss Camera working?
Yes.
What was the rent on the apartment?
It was $13.65.
And you each paid half?
Correct.
So far, correct?
Squabbles, but overall, we were just fine.
I'm going to ask you the same question. In 2020, everything okay?
No.
What happened in 2020?
It was emotional warfare since I moved in with him. There was arguments with everything, even simple things like cleaning the dishes, just nonstop. I was terrified of him living with him. I couldn't bring anything up without it being an argument.
Okay. So prior to moving in with Mr. Hastings, where did you live?
With my parents.
How old are you?
I'm 21.
Is this the first time you had an apartment?
Yes.
And how far away were your parents from this apartment?
Probably like 10 minutes.
If you were terrified, you should have moved home.
I wasn't allowed to.
You weren't allowed to because?
Because I wasn't allowed to live with my dad and stepmom because they moved into a 55 and over neighborhood.
When? Don't want to hear drama. If you had fights over who's going to clean the dishes, and I don't want to hear terrified unless you're terrified. And if you're terrified and you're 21 years old, you go back to where you came from, to your parents' house. If you're terrified, may not have liked it, but that's just kid drama. So, squabbles in 2020. Your lawsuit says that she disposed of your belongings. She filed a restraining order.
Yes.
As a result of the restraining order, you were evicted from the apartment.
Yes.
It was a false restraining order. You hired a lawyer to appeal the finding of the judge.
Yes.
That you had harassed her because this restraining order was based on harassment.
Yes.
May I see a copy of it, please?
I have a copy of the restraining order.
Of the order or what it was based on?
It said it has the whole thing. It says what it was based on.
Yeah, I see what she has. It doesn't look like it was what it was based on. You do a write-up of what it was based on.
On the front page.
Everything in this write-up is true. On the above date, which was the 7th of September 2021, on the above date and time, defendant and the plaintiff engaged in a verbal argument over household chores. The defendant then made comments to the plaintiff that he would go crazy on her and raised his fist. The defendant stated this multiple times and started shaking in anger, causing the plaintiff to be in fear for her life. And you had a hearing on this?
Yes.
You had a hearing on this. You told this to a judge?
Yes.
Yes.
I want you to tell me what you told the judge, or did you tell the judge anything?
I told the judge that I was raising my voice, but I was standing a good amount of distance away from her at the time, and that I was shaking because I wasn't being listened to, and that was it. There was no...
Because you weren't being listened to.
I was shaking just because I was angry. I was just trying to keep my composure.
Well, that would frighten me.
Ryan Hastings claims his former roommates, Peyton Kammer, owes for a security deposit and personal belongings. Peyton is countersuing for rent and emotional distress.
Now, tell me, did the judge say to you, how would you describe shaking in anger because you weren't being listened to?
Can you repeat that question?
I don't know how you were shaking. You mean you...
I was shaking as in, like, I was shaking just because I was angry. I wasn't being listened to. I was trying to keep my composure, so I was just shaking.
Well, that would frighten me. Actually, I don't know whether I'd put you out of your house, but that would frighten me. Mr. Hastings, where are you living now?
I just moved into a new apartment.
With whom?
Myself.
Better?
Yes, and my cats.
Perfect. Yourself and your cats. Great. So I'm dismissing that part of your complaint, which seeks damages for a false restraining order.
Okay.
What you actually just testified to me, and I took everything that she said in her complaint against you. I didn't even have to ask her. I wanted to know what you told the judge.
Of course.
Then it was a reasonable issuing of a protective order, just to make sure that it appeared to me what you were testifying to is that she couldn't tell the difference whether you were composing yourself or whether you were out of control. Okay, so it was...
May I interject and just say that the restraining order was repealed and remanded, saying that the court did not find sufficient evidence to impose the order. And
whether it was or not, I don't care what... I'm not sitting as an appellate court.
Okay.
I'm sitting as a trier of fact for the first time in your civil act. I says he was shaking. She says he was shaking in anger. You say I was shaking to try to maintain my composure. Well, I'm not going to worry about them. Let him go find someplace else to live, which is what he did. So I think that that's reasonable. Money owed for return of security deposit. Now, he was put out of the apartment. He put in security deposit.
Correct.
And he was put out of the apartment. How much security deposit did he put in?
$682.
Are you still living in the apartment?
I am.
Okay. When he moved out of the apartment as a result of this restraining order, was there any damage in the apartment that he caused,
No.
then you have to give him back his $682 because any damage that would have resulted since he moved out would be your damage, okay? That's fair enough. $682, that's your security deposit, sir. Return of belongings. Okay, so when you were told that you had to vacate the apartment, tell me what belongings you left in the apartment which you think she still has, which belong to you.
I do not believe she has run away.
What items?
So I had a bed.
Just a second.
Yeah.
You had a bed and there was a major flea problem in the apartment as a result of your cats.
Correct.
Okay, she threw away the bed. What else?
Okay, there was a Nintendo Switch.
Do you know what that is?
Nintendo Switch? I never found that. I believe he took that the night with him.
Okay, she didn't have it. She didn't throw it away. What else?
I also had a hookah that was in there.
What, a hookah?
Yeah.
Do you have his hookah?
No.
Go. What's next? Okay, if you have to think about it that hard.
I'm sorry.
Sir, we're finished. She owes you back your security deposit.
Okay.
That's $682. You have a counterclaim. Most of it is nonsense. You counterclaim for emotional distress. Forget that. Only one emotionally. September.
But that would have been the $682.
Was he there in September?
September 1st would have been the day that the money was due.
No, when did he vacate the apartment as a result of your restraining order?
September 7th, when the night of the mistake, but he was late on rent often.
$682, that's what he gets.
Yes.
As he gets a security deposit back. Your counterclaim's dismissed. We're finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
I don't really disagree with anything. Everything went perfectly the way I would have hoped it went.
I'm glad I got my security deposit back, but I could have definitely been compensated for the items that I lost.
I mean, he got a little money out of it, but way less than he thought he would. It's a good day.
Sometimes I can get anxious, but I would not hurt anybody physically.
I hope he gets some help.
Me and my cats are the best trio.
You know, I remember from a very early period in my life when I started college that I wasn't really good at having a roommate.
I think you must have passed that on to me.
I did, especially one that you don't love. You know, it's hard enough to live with time, but I love him.
Yeah.
It's very hard to deal with somebody schmutz that you don't love.
Got to be careful and pick someone you really think and cross your fingers and toes.
Actually, Sarah, I don't think you should pick anybody. I think that what you should do, if you can, is live in a shoebox by yourself, if that's all you can afford. Yeah. You know how many roommate cases we've done just in the last couple of years?
All with stress and aggravation intertwined immensely.
Immensely, and that's without romance involved. Oh, yeah. I mean, this young man, who looks like a perfectly reasonable young man and very honest, said he told the judge that he was shaking. I said, well, describe to me what you were doing. And he shook. And
I would say that's
crazy.
A little out there.
She was getting under his skin. There's no question she was getting under his skin.
Middle of COVID, everyone's inside.
For unpaid wages.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case number 2071, Booker Marshall versus Zephyrin.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Zephyrin?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Zephyrin, you're being sued by these two people because they say they worked for you delivering packages, I believe, of auto parts. Is that right?
Yes, Judge.
And you didn't pay them. That's simple. You're in the auto parts business or just the delivery business?
Just the delivery business.
For how long?
For about a year.
Explain the business to me, since you're not in the auto parts business, just the delivery business. I have to understand the process and keep it short.
The process is I go to the store, pick up the car parts.
Go to what store?
Hyundai or Toyota.
So you go to the manufacturer?
Yes.
Or the dealership?
The dealership.
And get the part?
And get the part and deliver it.
And you take them to independent garages that fix cars?
Yes.
Okay, now I understand. Your business is you're sort of a middle person between your local auto repair shop and the manufacturer who manufactures those parts or its dealer.
Yes, that's correct. We're the parts.
So the part has already been ordered and paid for?
Yes.
By the garage, by ABC Garage?
Yes.
They just send you to expedite the delivery?
Yes, ma'am.
And how much do you get paid for each delivery?
Well, it's not by each delivery.
At this particular contract, it was between $120 and $160 a day.
And you said that this particular contract, what contract is that?
This is the car parts contract. Before the car parts, delivering the car parts, I was delivering packages.
But this operation was just car parts.
Yes, it was.
Now, at some point, these two people, how many vans do you have that deliver the parts?
Currently, I have one van.
What were they using to deliver the parts?
The van that I have.
And what did you do?
I worked in my 9 to 5.
You had a different job?
Yes.
What kind of job did you have?
I work at the Aviat.
So this is sort of a side gig?
A hobby, I would say.
Well, a hobby, $120, $160 a day is a nice hobby. The garages.
They also used it for personal use too, yeah.
I don't care, but they used it because you didn't use it. You were doing your day job, according to you.
Yes.
And this was a side gig where these two people were working during the day to deliver the parts.
Mr. Marshall was working during the day.
Okay, let's just say Mr. Marshall.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Marshall sort of contracted with Miss Booker, or did you?
Mr. Marshall did.
You contracted with her. You agreed with her that you would split up this delivery. You would do it a couple of days, and she would do it a couple of days.
Yes, Judge.
Okay, so you had no direct agreement with him. Miss Booker, look at me. My question is, did you have a direct agreement or ever meet or discuss salary with the defendant?
No, I did not discuss.
And you can sit down. Okay. Because you have to have some sort of an agreement with someone in order to sue them. You had no agreement with him. Whatever agreement you had with him, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
And am I correct, Mr. Marshall, that you were supposed to be paid, according to you, a certain amount per day to make these deliveries? You decided you wanted to work 3 days a week and she would work 2?
Yes.
That's what I thought I read. Okay. Paying him $80, you were working your day job, and Sue, you were either going to get $40 or $80, depending upon the work that was done, right?
Correct.
And you were going to get that as a result of his work.
Yes.
Perfect. Now, this is what you say. You say that you all decided to go into business together. You bought this van. You paid for the insurance. He was going to work and make the deliveries. I'm telling you what you wrote.
Okay.
And if you have a problem with that, you'll tell me in a minute.
Okay.
He was supposed to work, make the deliveries, and not get paid until you paid off all your expenses, your startup expenses, the van, your insurance. Didn't you say that to me?
Yes, I
Or maybe I'm thinking about another case.
I did say
You did say that to me.
I just wasn't correct, the we, because I bought the van and I paid up all the stuff.
I said you paid. I didn't say he paid. You paid the van. You paid for the insurance. He was going to drive. He says you were supposed to pay him $80 a day to do that because you had a full-time job. You were making your money. Your defense to it is that that was not the agreement. The agreement was, this was the van.
$2,000.
So it was an old van.
Yes.
And how many months did you work at this job before you had a kerfuffle with him?
A year and 3 months.
Is that correct, sir, that he worked a year and 3 months?
It seems more about close to a year to me.
And when you say you worked for a year, was that 52 weeks a year?
Yes.
5 days a week?
Yes. Sometimes on Saturday.
From when to when?
I would work depending
No, from what month and year to what month and year?
January 2021 until March or April 2022.
And in that year plus, how much money did you make? If you kept records of the days that you worked and how many hours you worked and how much you were supposed to be paid, then I could look at that. But I can't do this. This is ridiculous.
Judge, may I explain?
You can try, but you're going to be unsuccessful, Mr. Marshall, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to try.
And later today.
He did, in fact, bring you a truck.
He didn't.
Never brought you a truck.
Never brought me the truck, never returned my money, anything.
Oh.
Marquis Marshall and Kai Booker.
You make.
Judge, it's a tough question because Mr. Zephyr never paid me what he was supposed to pay me. He always came up with an excuse or a reason why.
I want to know how much money you made in that year.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Well,
Judge.
Then I can't help you. I have to know how much money he paid you, and I'm going to figure out from how much money he paid you Because even if I buy his defense, the van was only $2,000. So you have to sit down and figure out how much, unless you know. How much did you pay him?
Around $320 a week.
What do you mean around? I mean, you're a businessman.
He did not work 5 days a week. He's saying he worked 4 to 6 days a week. All he worked was 3 to 5 days a week.
I assume you were paid in cash?
Yes.
But you were paid during that year?
Yes.
Give me an idea in thousands how much you were paid.
Around $20,000.
$20,000?
Yes, Judge.
Around?
Yes, Judge.
So he did, in fact, pay you?
He didn't pay me everything he was supposed to pay me, Judge.
Well, how am I supposed to figure that out, sir? How am I supposed to figure that out? You keep records of what you do?
Of when I worked, Judge, but I did not keep records of what I was paid because we're always arguing. He never paid me the full $700.
That's not the reason you don't keep records. I'm sorry, Mr. Marshall. If you kept records of the days that you worked and how many hours you worked and how much you were supposed to be paid, then I could look at that. And I can ask him, and I assume he's a businessman. He would have the same records, and there may be a dispute, but I can't do this. This is ridiculous.
Judge, may I explain?
You can try, but you're going to be unsuccessful, Mr. Marshall, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to try.
I appreciate it, Your Honor. Mr. Zephyrin was my friend. We went to the same high school, played on the same high school basketball team. I was the MVP, he was the team captain. Recently, his health has been declining. Because his health has been declining a year ago, I went to Mr. Zephyrin and I said, I'm a private contractor and I have different contracts with places. I think that you should do private contracts so you can spend more time with your kids and your wife. I apologize, but I'm emotional.
Well, don't get emotional.
I used to love
Mr. Marshall.
This gentleman.
Mr. Marshall, what I'm telling you is don't get emotional. This is not...
Okay.
It's a sad thing that you know each other for a long time, I hear, and that it's come down to a case in court. But you have to understand that in order for me to make a judgment, I need facts and information. And it's not as if you're saying to me that you delivered packages, which he acknowledges, and you were never paid. What you say is that you were shortchanged.
Yes, Judge.
And you have to be able to show me worked and what you were paid. How am I supposed to figure out what it is that he owes you?
Because we both know that he only paid me $300 instead of the $700. We both know that.
Well, he paid you $20,000, so that's not true. According to you, he paid you $20,000. So if what you're saying that we paid you $300 and he owed you $700, is that what you're saying to me?
Yes.
Okay, so it was the last period of time that you worked for him?
Yes.
Okay, so that last period of time was when to when? Give me the month, give me the day.
January to March this year.
From January to March?
Yes, Judge.
Of 2022?
Yes, Judge.
You work and you claim you were owed $700. That's what you just said. Is that correct?
I apologize for the miscommunication, Judge. He only paid me $3 when he was supposed to pay me $7.
Just a second. You're not paying attention to me, sir. I said your claim is that he owed you $700.
He owes me more than $700.
No. What you said was he owed me $700 and he only paid me $7. He only paid me $3, which
Correct.
means he owes you $400.
Correct, Judge.
And that was from a January to a March.
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Do you have any records of that, sir?
I paid him in cash, so I don't have any records of the payments that I was paying him. Mr. Marshall, he really never wanted me to keep records.
Okay, don't tell me what he wants. It's your business. Don't be foolish, sir. Did you have a dispute with him over this $400?
I did. We had many disputes.
Okay. Did you, in those disputes, refer to a part that got misdelivered by either the plaintiff or the person who he subcontracted with that caused you to lose a customer?
Yes.
Okay. And was that the reason that you didn't give him the $400? Just listen to my question. You had a dispute after all this time over a part, according to your answer, that was misdelivered to a customer.
Yes.
Which caused you, according to you, to lose the customer. I don't know that. But that you indicated was the reason that this arrangement went south. So my question to you is that why you didn't pay him the $400?
No, it's not. He didn't return my van.
Oh, so the reason you didn't pay him the $400 that you...
Yes, I did.
How many days later?
2 days later. After I threatened to call the police.
Okay, you owe him the $400, sir. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $400. We're finished. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
You can't keep somebody's van for 48 hours and still expect your money.
He's lying about the fact that we stole the van and that we had it for those 2 days.
I think it was really bad that he's suing me over this. We've been friends since high school.
Document everything that you do when you do it. That would make better sense.
But hey, things happen. He got a new girlfriend and things happen.
Not a difficult situation. If you choose to pay an employee in cash, you have to keep records. Both parties should have kept some sort of records. Otherwise, what they were asking me to do was guess. This defendant actually made it easy for me because without his statement, I would have dismissed the case. He said the reason he kept the $400 because the plaintiff did not return his van right away, kept it for 2 days. Well, that's sort of retaliatory. How do you fix $400 as
cost for keeping
as a cost? You know, that's ridiculous. That's self-help. Keep records.
Hi, xin chào các bạn, chào mừng các bạn đã đến với kênh của mình. Hôm nay chúng ta hãy cùng tô màu bức tranh hình ảnh hai người đang múa ballet. Đầu tiên tóc mình sẽ tô màu nâu. Mình sẽ lấy màu vàng tô vào chiếc váy vào. Màu xanh đậm vào áo của người đàn ông. Oh my gosh. Quần áo đàn ông mình sẽ tô màu sáng. Màu cam vào giày múa. Bút của ông cũng sẽ là màu tím. chúng ta đã hoàn thành xong bức tranh một cặp đôi đang múa ballet. Và đây là thành quả ngày hôm nay. Hẹn gặp lại các bạn ở những video tiếp theo.